Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 237th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will try to look into the future and see what the long-term impact of today's public schools is on our society. Today's discussion begins with Tom Finley, former Vice President of Human Resources Development at Rubbermaid Incorporated. Then Brian Laubaugh, President of R&B Financial Services, followed by Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, retired senior research chemist, and Patty Haskins, a former member of the Wadsworth City Council and faculty of Wadsworth Senior High. Tom, in recent years, significant changes have been made in our public schools in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. What do you think these changes will impact on the future directions of America? As we are now a nation of discriminating, are we now a nation of discriminating against hard work, sound decision-making, and effort?
Oh, well, talk about a can of worms. That would just open one. Change, big word, question mark, exclamation point. Diversity, equity, inclusion, three big words. I looked at those, I listened to what you said, John. I came up with just 9 questions I'm going to put out to put some direction to these very large concepts that we're looking at. So let me just read those to you and see if they don't start.
Read slowly.
Okay, I'll read slowly. The first one I put down was artificial intelligence. What do we know and predict its impact will be on the classroom? The second one, communications technology in general. What has changed that will impact the classrooms of America? Cell phones being an example. 3, will schools become socializing institutions, not learning centers? 4, will computers and other technology replace teachers and administrators? And 5, how many years will children be in classrooms? What age will they start? 6, what will determine classroom attention and assignments? Will it be age? Will it be intelligence? Will it be both? But what will influence that? And 7, will sports and other contests become more or less important? And 8, will private schools replace public schools? And 9, will local school boards continue to make decisions about resources needed to meet the educational needs of its citizens? So I put those 9 questions together to stimulate and react to this very timely topic, John.
I'd like to comment on one of those, and it has to do with cell phones. And there have been some experiments lately of outlawing cell phones in schools. A kid is not even allowed to get in through the front door with a cell phone on their person. And the results have been very positive in this. And even though some people are convinced that the use of a cell phone in our younger generation is an absolute unbreakable addiction, where it's been experimented by eliminating them, there was a lot of relief, and the students really liked the idea that they were not tied to their cell phone during their school days. I thought that was sort of an interesting outcome. So I'm not going to talk anymore because I'm the host.
There's interesting things about artificial intelligence recently. I don't know if any of you have used any of these. I've used the Chat GPT a couple of times, and the results have been kind of generic. I ask I said, write a sonnet in lauding me, and it did come up with all kinds of nice compliments on me and my whatever, nothing that wouldn't apply to millions of other people. But certainly there's concern about this in the schools, where you can really, the thing, it gets better and better, and it's possible to get something that sounds like it's really done by a human being. And there's some new ones out just now that there's a political campaign in Pennsylvania, in near in the Harrisburg area, where a Democratic person running for Congress, running for state representative there, has used a program to make phone calls, and this thing is capable of doing interactive conversation. And people are warming to it. They get the information, they can ask a question, it gives them an answer. Now, and things that it's not been trained for, asking a question about how to cook your summer dinner roast, and it can come up with completely wrong answers. But if the program was done correctly, and apparently it is in this case, people are using that. So, is this going to be the future? Are we going to be sure what's going on? And there are these AI programs out there that can take an image and make that image do whatever you want it to. And that's going to be a problem, I think, in our political thing, particularly in social media, where that gets disseminated so quickly. So that's a part of an education thing going on here that I think schools are concerned about it. And I read where a lot of schools are beginning to try to really crack down on this and make sure that students are not able to use this for any kind of reporting, any kind of schoolwork. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I don't know that they've been able to get a handle on that yet. There are too many people who use AI to write their master's thesis.
Yeah.
And get away with it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you have simple things like this. How much time do kids spend being transported to and from school, and how much danger is involved there? Wouldn't it be easier if their school was in their home? Now that opens a whole can of worms. Where does socialization fit in, and how do they learn, and so forth? But
we had that experiment during COVID, and apparently
that's
there's
just
real problems with the socialization aspect of it.
Yeah.
yes. And I was just going to reference COVID taught us a lot, or opened our eyes. Didn't answer necessarily the question, but change, is the classroom the way to educate, or is it just one way? And is it, like I've said in one of the questions, is it paving the way to private schools and not public schools? And the list goes on in terms of the change that technology is bringing upon us as parents, students, and even our own education, if you will.
Yeah. Bryan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think Tom has some good questions. One of the issues that I see, and I'm coming from the standpoint that I have a daughter who's a guidance counselor in an elementary school down in North Carolina, and she has behavior problems from kindergarten to fifth grade like you would not believe. Kids are coming to school not prepared. They can't sit in class. They don't know. They have kindergartners. I remember when our kids were in kindergarten, we tried our best to get their numbers down and letters. And they were, they weren't really reading yet, but they could identify letters and numbers. They could count to, 100. And now it seems as though parents just drop their kid off at school and they're not really engaged in the education of their own children. So I believe that it's the parents' responsibility to oversee the education of their child. Now, the issue with cell phones probably isn't much about kids. It's about hovering parents that mothers and fathers need to know where their kid is every minute of the day. And the hue and the cry that goes out from school systems and parents that have school systems that have said no more cell phones is from the parents, because mom has not cut the umbilical cord to their 15-year-old kid. I think of the times, there were no cell phones even 15 years ago. We joke with our kids. We got them, we had a set of twins. We bought this old Nokia clunky phone that they got to share, and they could call us when they needed picked up from their track practice. That was it. It wasn't a smartphone. It had no capabilities to get online. It was just a phone. And they quickly lost interest in carrying that clunky phone around because, if mom was 5 minutes late or dad was 10 minutes late, there was no reason to call him, So I believe that the solution to some of this is we have to get parents re-engaged in overseeing the education of their kids, not just hovering over them and doing their homework for them and making sure that, they're keeping their schedules. The kids just sort of plugged in, and mom and dad are making sure they do it the rest. We're seeing that in our colleges right now. The kids can't think on their own. They can't problem solve on their own. Every little thing creates a crisis in their lives. They have no grit to speak of. And we want to blame the schools for that. Well, I don't believe that blame is the school's fault. I just think we need to get back to, and you brought up a good point. We went through, I think, an experiment with COVID. They're studying this issue now, but most of these people say that our kids are at least 2 years behind educationally and developmentally because they missed 1 year or 1.5 years worth of school. There's still kids out there that are wearing masks. And somebody comes down with it. California has some of the strictest COVID protocols out there. They're still following those protocols, and it's damaging these young men and young women. And I think we just have to get back to the basics. I believe really, and this isn't popular, take away, put kids in uniforms. I like that about private schools because all, kids look the same. They don't have to worry about the latest jeans with holes through them. They don't have to worry about wearing $95 sneakers or $200 sneakers or wearing the latest stuff. Everybody wears the same clothes. Everybody goes to the classroom. You just cannot discount the importance of bringing those kids together in a group setting, in a classroom setting, and having them learn. That's probably old school, but I think I've sort of come away from what COVID did. Remote learning for kids doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work. The failure rate, I think, if people were honest, was through the roof with kids because they just don't have the discipline to actually do the work. They need a teacher there. They need that example there. They need that socialization. So I think the solution, 90% of the solution, falls in the laps of the parents.
And I'd just like to make a comment about that. I heard an interview on PBS the other day, and there were a number of parents complaining about the high cost of childcare. That both parents working and hiring somebody else to raise their kids and attend to their needs and all of that. I'm wondering how conscientious the hired help is in teaching the kids the things that you were just talking about, right? But Patty, before you start, I got a question for you. Over the time that you were teaching, did you notice a change in the development of students? Did they come to you differently in the later years than they did in the beginning?
Not really.
Oh, good.
No, kids were kids. Now that the world changed and the rules changed, and they had, I saw the advent of cell phones and all sorts of different things. And but kids were still kids and responded in pretty much the same way as they always did.
Oh,
I'd like to respond to that. When I was a school principal, I made a decision, and I didn't ask staff or anybody else, that I would make student council an example of government and democracy, et cetera. And so we had parties, that is a political party, and with the students speaking in assemblies and so forth. Long story short, the student council president was not required to attend class, and the student council president attended staff meetings, etc. They were very involved, down to children who we were getting the new year started, and we're getting kids coming from the elementary building to the middle school for the first time. We had every kid involved in meeting at the bus and sponsoring a child and getting them to the classroom, etc. Enough said about that. It was so successful we just didn't have vandalism. We had very little trouble with discipline in that school or whatever, with the involvement of, in the name of student council, et cetera, et cetera. Now that was a change. It was a risk, and one I didn't know what would happen, et cetera, et cetera. I think it was happening other places too. It just was not reported, like it wasn't reported when I was there. I didn't even share it with colleagues when I went to county meetings and so forth. But it was a definite impact, positive impact on behavior in that school. So,
Patty, what are your thoughts on whether or not we're preparing kids to become responsible citizens?
Oh, I think, I guess it probably depends upon the school district and the state that you're living in.
Yes.
I can only speak of what I saw here in Wadsworth. And I really think our school district does a wonderful job of preparing kids to be good citizens. And it's not just in your civics classes or in your history classes, but overall holding kids responsible for their actions, demanding having a demanding curriculum that requires kids to think. Don't give out phony A's, give out the grades that the kids deserve. All of these things are being done in this school district while teaching students the basics and the skills that they need to go on to life in life, whether it be in a straight to the workforce or on to college or into the military. I think that we're sending our students that are prepared. Now, what this requires is that you have a school board that is interested in the kids, in their education, in their academics, and doesn't come onto the school board with an agenda or trying to reinvent the wheel. It also requires that you have parents that are active in a child's life, that read to them, that take an interest in what they're doing, but also recognize that the teachers in that classroom are the experts on the subjects and are trained in teaching and do know what they're doing and really do have the final say in that classroom, so that they don't have to teach revised history because the parents think that it should be something different. So again, I can only speak to this town and to this school district. And very honestly, there are other school districts in the area that are as strong, if not stronger, than Wadsworth. But they all seem to exhibit the same type of situation. One of the problems I see right now is that there seems to be the movement by some parents to basically take over the school district and to micromanage what their child is taught, and rather be able to be taught things that are important. They've decided that just A and B are important, but not C. And that can only cause kids to lose out, kids to not be fully vetted and ready for society when they move out into it. Because, once you graduate from high school, you're not going to have mommy and daddy to watch over you. You've got to learn to take care of yourself. And that's something that kids need to learn when they are in school.
I'll quickly add that's not happening when kids graduate from high school.
Well,
Their moms and dads are still involved with their lives. The guy's 35 years old. He's living in the basement. Mom still cooks his meals. Mom still does his wash. It's just that break is not happening. And I agree 100%
I
with
know,
what Patty
and
has to say.
that's the change that I see, and that's parent involvement, unfortunately, but it's like over involvement. That's getting ridiculous. John, you mentioned diversity and inclusion, and these are things that have been brought into the school district. I think in some it's gone way overboard, but in other cases, it's important to have that. I see things like in Florida where they no longer teach AP African American Studies. Well, why can't you teach that? What's wrong with adding that as a course? I mean, when I was in college back in the Stone Age, we took Eastern civilizations and Western civilizations. And under Eastern civilizations, you could choose to do, I did Southeast Asia. What was wrong with having a course that just studied that particular group of people? And that you have that as an option. So
they don't even know where Southeast Asia is on a map.
Well, that's why they need those courses.
I need to share this with you. I almost forgot this, and you reminded me. 2 weeks ago, my great granddaughter, Rachel, I said to her, "How's school?" And she says, "Oh, Grandpa, I've finished high school 2 years early. I'm now at Kent State University."
Oh, wow.
About that.
Yeah.
2 years early.
Well, there's a big move now that kids take college courses while in high school, and they get yours is different, but they've been doing that since I worked.
Well, it blew me away. It blew me away.
They can take college courses and get credit, and the state pays for it as long as you're still in high school.
Yeah.
My opposition to that is, I think we also have to let kids be kids. We shouldn't be so anxious to throw them out into the world. Yeah, I don't want my kids living with me when they're 35, but I don't want to shove them out into the world when they're 15 either.
Well, that's two extremes.
Yeah.
Ron, I have a question for you in the last 3 minutes that we've got here. Patty brought up the idea of parents trying to dictate to the school board what curriculum might be. I guess I'm not that tuned in to understand that. You probably aren't either. We all have old kids. But what are your thoughts on the parental involvement in the public schools?
I think it's the school boards need to listen to the parents, but on the other hand, I think the decisions has to be with the school board, and they can be voted out. And most of us, if you don't like them, no, I think we should leave professional stuff to the professionals. Certainly know if I'm in my laboratory, I don't want somebody coming and saying, "Oh, well, you really shouldn't be doing that because I read where that's harmful to you." That sort of thing. Patty, one thing you mentioned about Wadsworth High School, that they give students the grade that that they deserve. I saw a video recently of a teacher complaining that in her district, they no longer can give a 0 on a test. They can give no grade lower than a 50%. And, that's going to raise the average,
Yeah.
All that does is to dumb kids down. And I would see this. We would get transfers in occasionally from various school districts, and the kid would have an A in Algebra 2 halfway through the school year. And I put them into my curriculum, and they didn't know squat. They had a course whose curriculum was weak. And if you dumb the course down enough, everybody can get A's, but they're not learning. They're not learning anything that way.
Yeah.
So
You know,
Well, math
okay.
is racist now. Did you know that? Math is
what is
racist.
racist?
Math.
Yeah.
Really?
Math is racist. In certain schools, they no longer test or teach math because it's racist. It's not what, certain groups do well. So it's racist. And
Well,
that's coming,
Well, it's obviously because women are so much better at it than men. So
I just have one comment to make before we end here. Patty, in my experience as a parent and listening to different math teachers talking about their students, I've never heard a math teacher that did not criticize the previous education of their students. They teacher would say they come to me without having good solid foundation. Their teachers before me failed. Anyway,
I want one point.
No, we're
You know how delightful it is to
we're out of
see.
time, Tom.
Delightful it is to see your 10-year-old student in front of you talking to this group.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, folks, see you in 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about whether or not we have a society based on deception. So think about that, and I'll get more information to you.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.